to multiply that by Monday, she worked 1/4 of 1/2 of a day. So we're going to multiply 1/4 times 24 hours. We have to write 24 hours as a fraction over 1. We can reduce before we multiply. 4 divided by 4 equals 1. 24 divided by 4 equals 6. 1 times 6 equals 6. 1 times 1 equals 1. On Monday, she worked 6 hours. She gets paid $12 an hour. So we're going to multiply $12 times 6 hours. 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. On Monday, she earned $72. On Tuesday, she worked 1/3 of 1/2 of 1 day. We're going to first multiply 1/3 times 1/2. We cannot reduce before we multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Now we're going to multiply by 24 hours. 24 over 1. We can reduce before we multiply. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. On Tuesday, she worked 4 hours. She makes $12 an hour. We're going to multiply $12 times 4 hours. 4 times 2 equals 8. 4 times 1 equals 4. On Tuesday, she earned $48. On Wednesday, she worked 1/4 of 2/3 of a day. We can reduce before we multiply. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. 4 divided by 2 equals 2. 1 times 1 equals 1. 2 times 3 equals 6. We're going to multiply 1/6 of a day times 24 hours. We can reduce before we multiply. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 1 times 4 equals 4. 1 times 1 equals 1. On Wednesday, she worked 4 hours. She earns $12 an hour, and we're going to multiply that by 4 hours. We really don't have to do any work here because we've already solved this problem for Tuesday because they both worked for 4 hours on, she worked for 4 hours both on Tuesday and Wednesday. So she earned $48 again on Wednesday. On Thursday, she worked 2/5 of 5/6 of a day. We can reduce before we multiply. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. So on Thursday, she worked 1/3 of a day. We're going to multiply that by 24 hours. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. On Thursday, she worked for 8 hours. She gets paid $12 an hour. We're going to multiply this by 8 hours. 8 times 2 is 16. Carry the 1. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 96. So on Thursday, she earned $96. On Friday, she worked 1/3 of 7/8 of a day. Then she worked overtime for 1/12 of a day. Her overtime pay is 1.5 times her regular hourly rate. So we're going to have to break this problem down into 2 parts. I'm going to divide my box into 2 sections. For the first part, she worked 1/3 of 7/8 of a day. I cannot reduce this problem, so I'm going to have to multiply across. 1 times 7 is 7, and 3 times 8 is 24. Now I'm going to multiply this by 24 hours. Lucky for me, I can divide by 24 on the top and the bottom. 7 times 1 is 7, and 1 times 1 is 1. So in the beginning part of her day here on Friday, she worked 7 hours. She's going to make $12 an hour. So we're going to do 12 times 7. 7 times 2 is 14, carry the 1. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. Okay, so in the beginning part of her day, she is making $84. Now for the second part of her day, she works 1/12 of a day, and a day has 24 hours. We can reduce before we multiply. 12 divided by 12 is 1. 24 divided by 12 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. She worked for the second part of her day for 2 hours. Now her overtime pay is 1.5 times her regular pay. So we're going to figure that out. She gets paid $12 an hour. So what is 1.5 times that? Well, 1 times that would be 12, and a half more would be 6. So 12 plus 6 is $18. So she's actually making $18 an hour. Now you may not trust that, so we can always do multiplication here. We can do 12 times 1.5. 5 times 2 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. I'm done with the 5. Add a 0. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. When I add this together, I get 0, 8, 1. And I have 1 decimal place, 1 decimal place. So her overtime rate is $18 an hour times 2. So we have $18 an hour times 2 hours. 8 times 2 is 16, carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So she earns $36 for the second part of her day. Now when you add both of these numbers up, 84 plus 36, you get $120 that she earned on Friday. On Saturday, Sonia came into the office. She worked for 2/4 of 1/6 of a day at her overtime rate of pay. We can reduce ahead of time. We've been reducing diagonally, but I also want to show you that you can reduce vertically. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. 4 divided by 2 equals 2. Remember, you can divide vertically and diagonally. You just cannot divide horizontally. 1 times 1 equals 1, and 2 times 6 equals 12. So on Saturday, she worked 1/12 of a day. Now you're going to multiply that by 24 hours. We can reduce before we multiply. 12 divided by 12 equals 1. 24 divided by 12 equals 2. 1 times 2 equals 2. 1 times 1 equals 1. So on Saturday, she worked for 2 hours, and she gets paid $18 an hour times 2. Now we already solved this problem up here. 18 times 2 equals 36. So on Saturday, she earned $36. What did she earn for the week? Well, if you add 72 plus 48 plus 48 plus 96 plus 120 plus 36, you're going to get $420. Always looking for an opportunity, Sonia heard that on Venus, one day is the equivalent to 243 Earth days. Many of her friends are moving there. What would Sonia earn for 1/3 of a day's work on Venus? Well, the ratio here between Venus and Earth is 1 to 243. So if I want to figure out what something is on Venus, I have to multiply by 243. Okay? So, or divide by that amount. So as we said in the previous slide, we have Venus to Earth, and the ratio would be 1 day on Venus is equal to 243 days on Earth. Now, we're going to start by figuring out what 1/3 of a day's work on Venus would be. So if we're on Venus, what we're saying here is that one day is like really, 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 really long. It's 243 days. So 243 days equals 1 day on Venus. So we're going to multiply that by 24 hours because in an Earth day, each one of these Earth days is 24 hours. So we're going to multiply these together. 4 times 3 is 12, carry the 1. 4 times 4 is 16, 17. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Add a 0. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to add that together. 2, 13, carry the 1. 10, 18, carry the 1. 4, 5. So 1 day on Venus, I'm going to put a V here, is like 5,832 hours on Earth. Now, she's only working 1/3 of a day. So we could multiply 5,832 by 1/3, but in the end we would be dividing by 3. So we're going to just skip to the part where we divide by 3. So we're doing 1/3 of this, so we're going to divide by 3. 3 is able to divide 5 one time. 2 left over, bring down the 8. 3 is able to divide 28 9 times, which is 27. 1 left over, bring down the 3. 3 is able to divide 13 4 times, which is 12. Subtract, you have 1 left over, bring down the 2. 4 times 3 is 12 again, 0. So this is how many hours she worked. 1,944 hours she worked. And we know she gets $12 an hour. So we're going to do 1,944 times 12. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 9 is 18. Carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Add a 0. 4, 4, 9, 1. 8, 12, 13, 12, 2. So she would have earned $22,328 for the day. If she worked on Venus, okay, she would get that much money in 1/3 of a day. So if she worked on Venus, so if she's living on Venus and worked 1/3 of a day, she'd earn $22,328. So that's a really, really, really long day. So that means that the rotation of Venus goes really slow. All right, now let's look at it a different way. Let's say that let's say she was on Earth, okay? So we're going to do 1/3 of 243 Earth days. So we're going to do 243 Earth days divided by 3. 0, 8, 24, 0, bring down the 3, 1, 3, 0. All right, so that's 81, okay, hours or days. And then we're going to do 81 times 12, 2, 16, 0, 1, 8, 2, 7, 9 days. Earth. Okay, and there you have it. Good job.